It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to open up the Board of Adjustment meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the board to you. We'll start at the end.
My name is Harry Kohler.
Dick Schneider.
John Avent.
Anil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
All right. First order of business is approval of the minutes. Do we have any meeting
We can get
minutes?
any minutes.
We'll do the approval of minutes on
I
the
didn't get
next
any.
meeting. We didn't get those ready.
Okay.
Emily is out of town. We'll have those for the next meeting to approve.
The month before?
The month before, we didn't have a meeting, so 2
Right.
months
Yeah, we
before.
did.
Be-
2 months ago.
And the last meeting we had was in December. We didn't have a meeting last month, in January. There wasn't enough people on the board to have a quorum.
Correct. Okay. So do we table that for next month?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
You're talking about December's minutes, right?
December's meeting.
December's, yeah. So
We didn't
we'll
get-
table December's minutes till next month. All right, the first item on the agenda is BOA 18.14, and in the agenda, it said that variance for the side and rear setbacks, and it's just the front setbacks.
Right.
So I have the staff do a presentation. Thank you.
Is that better? All right. Good evening, Chairman, Board. The first case we have this evening is case 18.14, located at 151 South Mobile Street, for a variance request. It's a request for a 5-foot front variance. We heard this case in December, and there was for a rear variance, a side variance. They have taken everything, redrawn the plans, and come up with a more minimum deviation to the site. On the screen, you can see where the site is located. On the left side is the zoning map showing where it's located, where it's zoned B3A, the Tourist Resort Lodging District, which does allow residences to be built. On the right side of the screen is an aerial view of the same site. Like I said, the location is 151 South Mobile Street, and it's located on the block that's created by South Mobile Street, Cliff Drive, Short Street, and Fells Avenue. The request is related to a proposed residential structure to be constructed on the subject property, which is PIN number 14484. The desired residential structure as submitted creates approximately a 5-foot encroachment on the 30-foot front building setback line. The applicant asserts that the footprint of the lot is too small to build a home using the current setbacks. Below, the single-family residential uses are, like I said, are allowed in the B3 zoning district, and the subject properties within that district. The applicant is Mr. Rick Gambino, and we have an excerpt of the dimensions table showing what the minimum requirements are and setbacks for a B3A, showing the front setback of 30 feet, rear setback of 35 feet, and a side setback of 10 feet. The street side setback does not apply, or the 15-foot driveway side setback is not applicable in the B3A zoning district. Here's just a view of the subject property looking to the southeast from the west side of South Mobile Street. A view looking northeast from the same vantage point on the west side of South Mobile Street. And a little closer shot looking southeast towards the subject property from the sidewalk on the side of South Mobile Street. The proposed site plan that is shown up here, the crosshatch area indicates the requested 5-foot front setback variance, reducing the requirement from 30-foot front setback to a 25-foot front setback. The property is PIN number 14484's 6,514 square foot lot size does fall below the minimum lot size, which is 7,500 square feet in the B3A zoning. Despite the non-conforming lot size, the requested lot coverage by the principal structure and accessory structures are in compliance with the 30% and 25% lot coverage requirements that are stated in the zoning ordinance. The principal structure building area, calculated using ArcMap, is approximately 1,477 square feet. The desired principal structure lot coverage is 1,738 square feet, but that number includes 380 square feet of porches. The allowable lot coverage of the principal structure, which would be 30% of the total lot, is 1,954 square feet, which is where they're still below the minimum lot coverage for what they're trying to build. The desired size and shape of the house and the desire for an accessory structure of the size and shape is shown on the site plan at the left, where you can see where that 5-foot encroachment, what the variance is derived from. A 5-foot reduction from the previous request considered on December 17th, 2018, before they requested a 10-foot variance. Now have been able to reduce that to a 5-foot variance. The shape and topography of the subject property doesn't appear to preclude its allowable use for residential purpose. However, due to the non-conforming lot size, staff does not necessarily object to the front-back variance for the subject property. The next slide is just showing where the calculations of the square footage for the buildable area and the lot size was done. City of Fairhope zoning ordinance in Article 7, Section D provides criteria for evaluating non-conforming lots. The subject's property width is 64 feet, which conforms with the 60-foot minimum lot width. The lot size of 6,514 square feet falls below the 7,500 square foot lot size requirement for the B3A zoning district. So if somebody was wanting to rezone this piece of property to B3A, that wouldn't be allowed because it doesn't meet the minimum lot criteria. Paragraph 3 of the article and section that I just mentioned above states that the front setback that are on corner lots or a side street setback should not apply to a lot where the average setbacks in the same block and within 200 feet of the subject lot is less than the minimum setback required for the district. What this paragraph is saying is you can take the average of the houses that are in the block within 200 feet, take that average and be able to use that, or you can take that, but it must be aligned with the existing structures that are adjacent to the property, which in this case, that doesn't really help their case. The lots that are in that 200 foot would reduce the setback, but the adjacent properties that are to it are still at that same 30 foot where it is. Some of the properties in the same neighborhood do have a smaller setback, but not adjacent, sorry.
May I ask you a question? You
Yes, sir.
said something about the B3B zoning, so if he builds a house, then he cannot go back to that zoning? Is that what you said?
No, I was saying if it was not zoned B3A and somebody was trying to zone it to a B3A,
Okay.
this lot is below the minimum and would not be allowed to zone it.
So it's
such
already
as that.
B3A?
It's currently
Okay,
B3A,
so it
yes,
would
sir.
stay with
So it's smaller than what it would be allowed. And this is, on the screen here, is a survey showing where they checked all of the properties within 200 feet in the block to see. And you can see the different variations and where the front of the houses are opposed to where the other streets are. Some of them are closer to the 30 feet. Some of them are 20 feet, and it's just a wide variety. But the parcels right next to it, adjacent to it, are setback equal or a little bit further back.
Mike, can you discuss the lot average, the setback averaging that we have in our ordinance as well, as far as the setback in the front lots?
For the,
Basically on the street, we have a provision there where you can average the front setbacks. If they're below the minimum, then that's what would be applied to it, correct?
correct. You can do an administrative, we can do an administrative appeal for that 200 feet. But again, the properties that are adjacent to you, you can align it with the properties that are adjacent to you.
So I don't see any properties that are 20 feet from the road.
I don't see any less than 30.
Yeah.
If you look on this, I'm trying to see,
That's 130.1.
on the
Mr.
top.
Chairman, just kind of explain staff's position on this. I think, we have a non-conforming lot, a very small lot, so we've already established that this lot is below the typical normal lot. And I think that's why we look favorably upon the variance, because it is a smaller lot than what is you typically find is below the minimum. And I believe the change from the last request has been, they basically adhered to everything except for a 5-foot.
That's correct.
5-foot deviation, so 25, so they're asking for a 25-foot setback instead of 30 feet, is that correct?
That is correct. And when you're looking, if you look on, look at that map on the bottom, it shows there's 11.2, the very bottom left where the compass symbol is. That residence is 11.2 feet. And you keep going along Short Street, 2.3, 1.6, 5.2. So I said within, average, about the average was around 17.2 when you took the average of the 16 properties that were within the 200-foot area of that. The average came to 17.2. However, the properties that are directly adjacent. Ma'am?
So you're saying on Short Street is where the distance is that correct?
That is correct. And I go back where it says, it's any lot where the average setbacks in the same block, which this is the one block that this property sits within, Short Street, Fells, South Mobile Street, and Cliff Drive. You go within 200 feet of that subject property inside the same block is less than the minimum setback required for the district. In such cases, the proposed building may be aligned with the buildings existing on either side thereof. So within that 200 feet, yes, it is below that minimum, averaging out at 17.2, but because of the buildings that are existing on either side, you use lining it up with what their setbacks are, which looking on the map, the one is 30.1 and one is 36.3. So that's still at the 30 feet, doesn't give them that 5 foot that could have been done on administrative review. So therefore, had to come in front of the board still to request this 5 foot variance.
I think by adding Short Street in there, you're comparing apples to oranges. I don't see, I know it's within the amount of square footage or footage you want to compare it to, but
Within
me,
the
it
200
hardly-
feet of the
it-
subject
it-
property.
yeah, I don't,
Yes, ma'am, I understand where you're coming from. If they were to come on Short Street to get a building permit, their front setback would be off of Short Street. So therefore, if somebody was to tear down one of their houses that has 1.6 feet off of Short Street
Right.
and build something new, they would have to conform to the new setbacks, and that would be the front setback coming off of Short Street. So they would have that same new 30-foot front setback if they were to rebuild one of those existing houses. To move forward, staff's recommendation, staff acknowledges that the existing lot is approximately 1,000 square feet smaller and approximately 18 feet shorter than a conforming lot located within the B3A zoning district, and the survey provided by the applicant as allowable by Article 7, Section D.3 does not result in an administrative front setback adjustment that reduces the amount of the front setback line. Staff believes the requested 5-foot front building setback line variance appears to reflect the minimum deviation from the zoning ordinance necessary to allow the subject property to be utilized to construct the requested residential structure. The applicant is reminded that per Article 2.C3G, that the variance must be acted upon within 365 days of approval, as well as recorded with the judge of probate. The staff recommends that case number BOA 18.14, request for a setback variance for PPIN 14484 at 151 South Mobile Street be approved. I'd be happy to answer any further questions that I may be able to.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
So it says from the house to the garage, the breezeway is 10 feet. Is that required by your ordinance?
Yes, sir.
To have 10 feet?
There's a 10-foot minimum separation required between accessory structures and the principal structure.
And why is that? Just the ordinance?
That's how the ordinance is written, yes, sir. For any accessory structure, there's its own separate setbacks. It's 5 foot off the rear property line, 5 foot off the side property line, and must maintain a 10-foot separation from the principal structure.
So he couldn't ask for a variance on the breezeway part, or he could?
He could.
Possibly could.
Yes, sir.
But that separation of 10 feet is a city-driven rule for
Yes, sir. And-
fire or safety? Is
For
that
all of the
correct?
above,
Okay.
yes, sir.
You received no objections from the adjacent property owners?
No, sir, we have not
Okay.
had any correspondence or anything coming from them saying that they object to any of the variances.
So, one concern I have is that when you, like, the people to the right and left, if we allow him to go out further, does it obstruct could it possibly obstruct the view from their homes looking out onto the bay?
No.
I would say that's kind of, which perspective are you looking at it from? What is pretty to me? From the orientation of the house, and part of it only, it's really, there's a front porch that is in that 5-foot variance setback. That is actually not a problem. It's just a small portion of the front of the house that is encroaching into that setback. It's not the full width of the house that is going into the setback. It's more just a little jut out, looking at the plans for part of the dining room that'll be
Dining
sitting
room.
in there.
So where's the dining room? Right there. So
Yeah.
that's what they're asking, that 5 foot there.
And the porch.
And the porch,
Correct, and the porch.
which is covered, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. May I ask you a question, John, since you know about building? So without that, does it make his house unbuildable without that variance? Or does it make it too small?
Well, just looking at the floor plan, I would say it would hurt it quite a
And
bit. And
The representative from Mr.
if they
Gambino
already
is,
had this thing redesigned, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but didn't they have some other, it was a larger house?
Yes, sir.
and
It was a much-
Figured it to.
it was a
do.
larger house before that encroached on multiple setback lines. Then they went back, redrew it, reconfigured it to where it was just a 5-foot, before there was a side setback variance, a 10-foot front setback variance. They were looking to do a 20-foot front setback as opposed to a 30. And then they were able to bring the house in and from the rear and be able to request just a 5-foot setback variance as opposed to the variances they had previously.
Mr. Chairman, I think staff's position too is that this request, that the request for this home is a reasonable sized home that does require a variance, and so we feel like that it's in keeping and reasonable with his request. Of course, you could build a house on any small lot if you wanted to. Whether that's reasonable or not is a different question. I think we feel like that what he's asked for is a reasonable request, a reasonable sized home. He has limited the house from the previous request, and I think we feel like this is something that's probably to a point now where we're comfortable with it. I know before he was, as Mike had mentioned, other setbacks, variances, and things like that. I think what he has right now, we feel like it's a reasonable request. The house is a reasonable size, not overbuilt for the property with the non-conforming lot, so we're comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
And a representative from Mr. Gambino from Chatham Homes is present as well if you have any questions for them.
We need to go on with the meeting.
All right, thank you. I'd like to open the meeting to the applicant. Would the applicant or the applicant staff like to come up? If you'll come up and state your name for us.
Kathy Hurd. I'm representing Mr. Gambino and Bob Chatham, who were both out of town.
Okay.
We had the meeting for last
Please
month.
put the mic in front of you.
I'm sorry. We had the meeting scheduled for last month, and they both had previous engagements. So what I'd like to state right off the top is there's currently a vestibule that goes into his building that is 25.9 feet. So it's already into the setback. So, obviously this area that we're asking for is a larger area, but it already is encroaching on that setback.
I don't understand
Put
what
the
you're
mic
saying.
back in front of
I
you so
see
we can
the-
hear you.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm looking at a porch. Where is the vestibule?
The existing structure, the current building that's there now,
Right.
if you look at the.
The restaurant, there used to be the restaurant, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the little clouded area here,
Yeah, if you look
In the
at
very,
it,
very
it
back page.
Shows shows 29 point.
There's
25.9
25.9
Right, okay.
feet vestibule that is encroaching on that setback currently.
And what is your point then about that?
That is what we're asking for, is 25 feet, the 5-foot variance on the 30-foot setback.
But you're not using that footprint.
We're not using this footprint. I'm only stating that we're already currently into the setback by 5 feet for that vestibule that's there.
I don't understand.
On the
I
old,
think if I may, I think what she's trying to say is that we were asking about the view, if it was going to be hindered or not. The current structure that is in place, that is going to be tore down, is at that same spot where they're wanting to build the new setback. And just tearing it down, they must conform with the new setbacks, which is why they've come here this evening for the variance request.
But I'd also like to say that, Mr. Gambino he's an elderly gentleman, and he's trying to age in place. And a lot of what we've done with this design is include an elevator so that he can access his second floor, and try to keep everything, located on the first floor so that he'll be able to mainly live there on the first floor.
What is the square footage of the second floor?
That has not been determined. We need to get the first floor laid out first, but, and to get that approved before we begin with the second floor layout.
I see 1164 right now
on the bottom, right?
on your floor plan.
The proposed second floor is 1164, but we have not laid that out yet.
Where is that elevator?
It's off to the left-hand side. It's to the left of the front porch.
Oh, I see it, okay.
There it is. Let me see it now.
Great floor plan
Thank you.
for 1,300 square feet.
Right. Is there any other questions?
No.
Thank you. No. Thank you.
Yeah, you want to open it to the public?
Yes, I'm going to open up. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against it? We'll open and close the public portion. And, board members, do you have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve BOA
have a question.
18.14. I'm sorry, Karen.
I just have a question. I guess it concerns the neighbors at the setbacks 30.1 feet and 36.3. This would be coming in at 25, and the city doesn't have a problem with that, even though I understand you're using Short Street in there, and
No, ma'am, I don't think so. Basically, what we're looking at is this individual property. We really aren't looking at to neighboring properties. Each case kind of sits by itself and is viewed by itself as far as the variance criteria. Additionally, you know, a little variation in the street is sometimes aesthetically more pleasing anyway, rather than having just a monolithic wall of.
well, but it's not a wall. One is 30 and one's 36, so
But to answer your question, no, we don't have a problem.
you don't have a problem. And Mr. Gambino is going to be living in this house. It's not for resale. You go ahead, John.
One thing if you don't mind, just before I make, just look at that, I just kind of drew out the adjacent property owners, Kathy, on the site. I'm just kind of 45 out from the existing buildings. Where it's not going to impede their view of the bay or anything. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of if you stood out on the front porch and looked out the window, you won't even see the house, I don't think.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, John.
I'll restate my motion. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve BOA 18.14 application.
I'll second.
We'll go, do roll call, please. Start at the end.
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Application is approved. Our second order of business is BOA 19.01.
Good evening. Like I said, the next one is a special exception, case number BOA 19.0 at 101 Lottie Lane in Unit 6. The applicant is requesting a special exception to allow an ADHD medical clinic of Mobile, PC, at 101 Lottie Lane in Unit 6. The property is zoned B2 in the general business district, and the requested use is permitted only on appeal and subject to special conditions. Therefore, anybody that wants to open a business or a clinic in this area must come before the Board of Adjustments for approval. It's not a variance or anything that is outside of the ordinance. It's a step that must be applied to. The City of Fairhope zoning ordinance defines a special exception as follows. Permission granted by the Board of Adjustment for use indicated in this ordinance.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The special exception is permission granted by the Board of Adjustments for use indicated in this ordinance as use limited to a special exception procedure, subject to conditions specified in this ordinance and any conditions the board deems necessary to ensure that the community interests are furthered by permission of the use. The property that this office unit is located on is bordered to the east by residential neighborhood, to the south and west by other similar uses as its clinics, and to the north across Fairhope Avenue by a bank and a cancer clinic. On the screen, you'll see a picture of the front of the building looking from Fairhope Avenue, and on the right is an entrance sign on Lottie Lane showing the current tenants. Now you can see there's a chiropractor, a dentist, lots of other little doctor shops that are in that same little area.
What is ADHD medical clinic? What is that?
ADHD.
Oh, like.
Hyperactive.
Hyperactive people.
Correct.
So someone
Behavior.
that's seeing ADHD people.
Yes, sir. I believe so. And the applicants are here to answer any questions if you have any further details. I'm nowhere near a doctor.
Attention deficit hyperactive.
Disorder.
But staff recommendation, staff recommends that the use be approved. The surrounding properties and businesses are all of the same or similar character of the property. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that I may. As I stated, the applicants are here as well to be able to answer any further questions to help clear anything up.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I'd like the applicant to come up.
My name is Dr. Almond Westbrook.
Okay. And so this will be an office for you?
My wife primarily, she's a physician here in town too.
Okay.
We're both internists trained in internal medicine. Her subspecialty is infectious disease, but we're trying to get her out of the hospital and in the clinic more. We have 4 children, so we need more home time. I have a clinic in Mobile, and it's been very successful. We want to expand over here.
It's an ADHD clinic,
For adults and adolescent, 12-year-olds and up. So,
12-year-old and up.
yes, ma'am.
And this clinic would take care of the younger kids?
Excuse me?
This ADHD clinic would go below 12 years?
No, ma'am. We do 12-year-old and up. My wife and I have been trained as adolescent and adult. So there has been a need here, considering about 20 to 30% of my patients in Mobile drive across often because we see our patients every 3 to 4 months.
What part of this building, I know, because it's a big building on the corner of Lottie Lane and Fairhope, what portion of the building would be the offices?
It's the southwest, I believe.
So they're not fronting Fairhope?
On the inside part of the building on the second floor.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to open the meeting to the public. If there's anybody for or against it, we'll open and close the public portion. I'll have the board members discuss and make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the special exception.
Okay. We will take a roll call. We'll start with Harry.
Aye.
Aye.
Does somebody need a second? The motion?
So-
Second. I'll second.
John
Yes, John
second.
second. Sorry about that. All right, so we'll take a roll call. Harry?
Aye.
Dick?
I said aye. Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Very good.
If
I'd
there-
like to ask a question. This is on a different subject. There's a building going up, in fact, it's almost complete now, at the corner of Mobile Street and Fairhope. I guess it's one lot off of the Mobile, but it's on there and it's facing Mobile. We have a 35-foot limitation on height. That building is considerably over 35 feet.
We have a 40-foot, don't we?
That's Carlton Niemeyer's.
That's what?
Isn't it Carlton?
The new condo you're talking about?
I guess it's a condo. I don't know. It's a 3-story building.
Where is it, on South Mobile and what?
South Mobile and Fairhope. You go down Fairhope to South Mobile and you turn left.
Oh,
You don't have to turn left if you're coming up Mobile Street. You turn right and you go past it on your right-hand side.
I don't know where that is.
Bayview and Fairhope Avenue?
Yes. It's Bayview and
That's the
Fairhope.
Knowles.
Oh, Bayview, okay.
Knowles is that apartment?
Oh, Bayview, that's
Used to
way
be where
out.
the old colony
Fa-
is. Used to be.
Yeah. You mean they're building them right now? That's on Fairhope Avenue.
Fairhope
Yeah,
and Bayview.
on
The one on
Bayview.
Fairhope Avenue is the one I'm talking about.
Yes.
Oh, I
Yes.
see
Fairhope and
that.
Bayview, right
Yeah.
there on the Golden.
Right.
It's what?
It's called the Knowles.
It's on commercial, so they can go up to 40.
They can go 43 stories.
I thought, didn't we just have an argument
No,
on
we
the,
didn't have an argument.
we had a discussion on it at, about the guy that's on,
40-foot we have.
It's 40 feet, 3
The
stories.
discussion
They
was
wanted to
whether
go
it's
In the area that they're at, they can be
3
40
stories or
feet.
4 stories. The city ordinance, Dick, is 40 feet, but it's limited to three
Three.
stories.
it's
That was-
limited to 3 stories or 4 stories?
3
Three.
3 stories on a 40-foot building.
If you'd like, you can come to the office and I'll pull the file and show it to you, and we can go over it.
Well, when we had the one where they
That-
were talking about the boutique hotel,
Right.
Completely
Okay.
different site, and they're requesting something different than what this development
They were
was.
looking at, they wanting to go 4 stories.
Not,
And the
they were
ordinance says
40
3.
feet, but they wanted 4 stories, which is not
allowed.
allowed.
okay.
All right.
But
I
they never, they
misunderstood.
pulled
I thought
that,
it was
right?
35 feet.
Yeah, residential.
Okay, good enough.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
We need to adjourn first, Dick.
Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Okay. All right.
Second.
All right.
I have, oops.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye.